and welcome to Join Our Town. I am your host, Dee Clark. Join Our Town brings you the issues and problems that are faced in the local community with the hope of finding a solution. Our guest for the first segment is Isabel Toth. She is the president of Community Properties of Ohio. We also have with us Josh Martin, Director of Property Management for Community Properties of Ohio. They are here to discuss the need for rehabilitation in the area of housing for low-income families. CPO has developed several unique programs that are having a positive impact on Central Ohio communities. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Very good to be here.
So let's get started by having you share with us background information for Community Properties of Ohio.
Okay. Community Properties of Ohio is actually an affiliate of Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing. So we're going to draw you into our acronyms. OCCH is a syndicator of affordable housing around the state of Ohio. And there was a need here in our local community spanning 7 neighborhoods, 7 urban neighborhoods that prompted us to create Community Properties of Ohio Management Services. We did that in 2001 specifically for the purpose of rehabilitating 1,033 units spread across 7 neighborhoods in the inner city of Columbus.
Now, what are some of the key challenges you have faced and addressed in this effort?
Well, the biggest challenge was that this was a portfolio that the units were built in the 1900s. They had been rehabbed a couple of times with some minor scope of work, and so the units were really in very poor condition. In addition, the previous management company, because of their goals, if you will, they were not going to put the additional dollars into the rehab, and so therefore what we ended up with was sort of the housing of last resort, if you will. So we had a lot of folks scattered throughout these 7 neighborhoods that were very, very low income, also had a very high crime rate, and the units were in very poor condition. They had no air conditioning, they had no showers, so the living conditions were really quite bad.
How has CPO been able to aid improvement efforts for the local community?
Well, the first thing we did was, because of Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, we were able to put together multiple deals over a 4-year period that we were able to attract financing that would allow us to do major rehab of all of the units. So we added air conditioning, we did put in showers, we changed all of the units to the tune of about $60,000 per unit. But we also knew that that was not enough. So we said when we started off that finding the financing and putting the package together was going to be challenging enough, but the real issue was the sustainability of the housing.
Now, please share some of the demographical findings that were used in creating programs for local residents.
The majority of our residents are single female head of household residents. They have 2 or 3 children. They make less than $10,000 a year. A significant number of our folks actually have 0 income. And you can imagine in this economy and situation that is a very big challenge. So the housing is really the focus of their basic stability. So we really use the housing platform to be able to help families remain stable in their housing and to be able to continue with the housing and to be able to seek employment opportunities and be a better part of the community.
Now, what are some of the factors that make these programs unique?
Well, I think the biggest thing when we started in 2003 is actually when we got started. Besides the rehab, which was the most significant, we also addressed 2 major areas. One is the criminal activity that was going on within the portfolio. And our young mothers and young children were really the prey of a lot of the gangs and drug activity and so forth. So we created a program that Josh Martin heads up that is called Eliminate the Elements. And have Josh tell a little bit about Eliminate the Elements.
Eliminate the Elements is a program we started back in 2003, and one of the things that we realized, as Isabel said, when we took the property over, one of the main focuses for us was to eliminate the criminal activity on and around our properties. With that being said, one of the things that we wanted to do was be strategic in the officers that we hired. So what we did is we actually went out and into the neighborhoods and worked with a sergeant that is very familiar with our neighborhoods, which he recruited officers that already work in the neighborhood. So they were already familiar with the issues, the areas, some of the kind of what we would call the undesirables in the area. And so we initially sat down. We had a regular meeting through a quarterly process to kind of discuss the process, what our expectations were. We made sure that our officers were trained in fair housing laws with our attorney, so that they understood what our requirements were, and also just made sure that there was a very close coordination with our property managers. So the coordination between the property managers and the officers is what's really unique about this program. Because one of the things is our officers can work as agents of our company, so they can enforce the law, but that communication and that follow-up really needs to be handled through our property management staff, in which they have a very close coordinated effort. We also have a anonymous tip line, which we've implemented for our residents as well.
So then the second part of that was really related to helping our folks maintain their housing. A lot of our folks are first-time renters, and so this is the first time they've had their own place. And as I mentioned, the income level and the number of children. So we put together a supportive services package plan where we really focus on helping people stabilize their housing. So we have what we call an at-risk program, where anyone that is at risk of losing their housing, going to get an eviction notice through property management for non-payment of rent, or not having the utilities turned on, or not passing a housing inspection, that type of thing, gets referred to our supportive services. And then we have a licensed social worker that works with the residents on a voluntary basis, that she engages them in possible solutions to the problem on a long-term basis. And that program has been very successful in helping families maintain their stability. When we first took over the portfolio, the turnover within the portfolio was between 50 and 60% of the families were turning over every year. We have continually drawn that down to about 22% of turnover. And that is, at the same time, we always talk about turnover in terms of, manager initiated or resident initiated, because we are all about strict compliance with the lease.
Now, in the last few minutes that we have left, let's focus on your website. On there, you list 5 key objectives in your supportive CPO. So let's kind of discuss those. It's to build stabilized housing, safe neighborhoods, mourning residents beyond poverty, children are successful, and then community research and development for poverty solutions. Let's talk a little bit about each of those in these last few minutes.
Well, we've addressed really the first two, the stabilized housing and the safety aspect of it. Moving people beyond poverty where possible is really kind of the overall approach that we have with our residents, is to really build relationship with our residents and to kind of meet them where they're at and provide opportunities for them to create a future story. And in addition to that, our focus is always on our children, because we have over 1,000 children, and having them be successful in school is very important. And then the last part is really happens because we are spread across 7 neighborhoods, that we're very connected within the community with partnerships with other service providers, other housing management companies, and so forth.
Give us those 7 neighborhoods that you all are involved in.
It's in Wyland Park, Harrison Park West, the Near East Side, Franklinton,
Driving Park, Old Oaks. So we cover multiple facets.
Okay, now who is CPO today, and how has this work impacted your organization?
Well, Community Properties of Ohio has really not changed. Our mission has not changed. It is really to provide quality, affordable housing to help people be stable in their housing and to move beyond poverty where possible. So we really haven't changed our focus in the last 10 years. I think that what we have done is we've built many, many relationships within the community, with residents, with community providers, to really engage residents within the community. So the work that we've done at CPO has really spread beyond just a housing issue. It has really spread into the community and to community engagement.
Now, what are your biggest challenges at this point, and how can the local community support your efforts?
Well, you know, our biggest challenge continues to be safety, and so we work very diligently, as Josh mentioned, with the Columbus Police Department and also with the communities that we are you know, located in.
And what is your website?
www.cpoms.org.
Mm-hmm.
Any last-minute words of advice that you want to give to our viewers?
For us, in regards to what we do, it really boils down to we do what we do because we care about our residents. And so our partnership with our residents is very important. So, you know, at the end of the day, when we go home, we want to make sure that our folks are taken care of and safe, and they have a quality, safe, affordable place to take care of their family in.
Well, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more from your program and what you all are doing. We appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next on Join Our Town, Partnerships Unite as One saves the entire community. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back for the second portion of Joy in Our Town. Thanks for joining us. Once again, I am your host, Dee Clark. Our guest for this segment is Dr. Melissa Briggs Phillips, Executive Director for International Poverty Solutions Collaborative. We also have with us Angela Stoller-Zervis. She is Supportive Services Manager of Community Properties of Ohio Management. They are here to discuss the devastating effects of poverty in the wake of the present economy. Several local organizations are working together to assess the issues of poverty and low-income housing to establish better communities. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, tell me about International Poverty Solutions Collaborative and how you became partners with Community Properties of Ohio.
The International Poverty Solutions Collaborative is a center for innovation supported by The Ohio State University. So Senior leadership at the university wanted to create interdisciplinary research centers that were going to tackle an issue of global relevance. And poverty emerged as one of the most vexing issues affecting the global community, let alone the local domestic neighborhoods in which we all live and work. And so after we were created, we were brought to the table with the Wineland Park Collaborative, which is a group of stakeholders working to revitalize the neighborhood to the south and east, directly adjacent to the Ohio State University. And at that collaborative, we met Community Properties of Ohio. And so that is where the initial linkage between our two organizations began. The Poverty Collaborative consists of faculty and researchers from multiple disciplines looking at issues related to poverty. And as our name implies, Poverty Solutions Collaborative, we're not interested in simply studying it, we're interested in identifying solutions so that you can scale them and replicate them in different neighborhoods and different communities.
Very good. Now, what role does housing stability play in the larger community revitalization efforts?
Any community, to be healthy, to be thriving, needs to have people living in the community who know each other, who feel safe, who feel that they can be a part of their community. And one of the ways to encourage relationships, long-term relationships where people can grow roots, raise families together, be a part of efforts that are important to everyone, is to have housing stability. Allow residents to live in a housing that they can afford for a long time, not to constantly be transient or finding new locations to be able to afford a place to live.
Can you describe your research and talk about why it is important in finding solutions to poverty?
In order for any community to revitalize, in particular some of our neighborhood-based initiatives around Columbus and around Central Ohio, you have to address all of the different systemic issues that impact the people that live in those neighborhoods. And so housing is sort of a necessary but not sufficient condition to think about when you're talking about revitalizing a neighborhood and talking about addressing poverty. So it's health, it's education, the qualities of the schools, it's the parks and the recreation space that are available to the people living in those homes so that they can build relationships with their neighbors. There's a broad array of issues that all relate to each other, and if you tackle those issues one-on-one, you miss the opportunity to look about how they're connected. And so when we bring groups of faculty and researchers together with folks in the community, they're in conversation and dialogue at the very beginning about how all of those things are connected. And so we are very committed to community engagement because of that, because our neighbors and the folks living in the places where we work need to be at the table as early as possible to inform that process.
What role does community engagement play in the revitalization efforts?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about just in neighborhoods where there is revitalization going on, there are often diverse populations. Many residents and many of the residents that we serve through CPO have lived in isolation. They are living in neighborhoods where they haven't felt safe. They haven't felt like reaching out to their neighbors to know them easily. And so being much more strategic and intentional about creating engagement opportunities so that families, individuals who've been in the community, and others in the community who maybe haven't had a natural way to connect with others from such a diverse background, it's important to be intentional and strategic about those opportunities. It also then affords residents an opportunity to have access to information, to know about what resources might be available to them so that they too can benefit from the revitalization going on in the community. Finally, also just to gain, as Melissa was saying, input, needing resident input in decisions that are getting made for the community. And so being able to reach a diverse population is really important.
Who else is involved in this work in Wineland Park?
It's a really special group of folks that are at the table working to revitalize this neighborhood. It's a relatively small footprint. There are maybe 5,000, give or take, residents that live within the boundaries of what has come to be known as Wineland Park. Campus Partners, which is a part of the Ohio State University, Wagenbrenner Development Corporation, Chase Foundation, Columbus Public Schools, all of the agencies providing services that are located within the neighborhood, and us as sort of an arm of the research and evaluation component of what's happening. A lot of those folks had already begun the relationship and the revitalization efforts before we were created. And so we are newer to the table, and a lot of those folks kind of crafted the roadmap of how we were going to move forward. And so we had the opportunity to join work that was already in progress, which was wonderful for us because we didn't have to start from scratch. The community engagement work that we now get to do was really birthed through Community Properties of Ohio. I mean, CPO, through their supportive services, adopted a Bridges community framework for working with folks in poverty, working with folks in service agencies and bringing them together to have good dialogue and informed conversation. And we got to take that on and use the oomph of the Ohio State University resources to really expand that. And that has been a really powerful platform for us to bring folks together.
Now, how does the partnership with CPO Housing affect engagement and revitalization?
I think you mentioned before the work that was started by engaging our residents and understanding and learning from them what's needed in order to truly be a part of the community, the greater community, was learning that was then shared with the Poverty Solutions Collaborative and carrying it broader, not just within the one neighborhood, but to really think about who all could benefit from this learning through the Bridges community. You know, I think that housing in and of itself, the renovations that CPO did and the commitment they have to maintaining affordable subsidized housing in the neighborhood at a standard that we can be very proud of for ourselves as well as for residents living has given great confidence to neighborhoods in order to you know, support the revitalization.
Now, back to the Wyland Park. How did that come about? Is that just the one that you focus on, or?
That's a good question. So for us, it was sort of an accident of history. For the Poverty Collaborative. The Wyland Park revitalization effort, as I just mentioned, was happening before we were created, before our center was created. But some of the lead faculty engaged were involved in projects already happening in Wyland Park through the Schoenbaum Family Center, which is located in Wyland Park and connected to the Wyland Park Elementary School. And so that was sort of a no-brainer, that we already have some relationships established. It makes sense to leverage what's already been created and build upon that. Our goal is to expand to other neighborhoods around Columbus in terms of the models that we may develop. We have Appalachian, Ohio projects and also international projects. So the goal is to be able to take what works in Wyland Park and then also replicate it across Columbus, across Appalachian, Ohio, and perhaps even within an international context. So that's the power of having a footprint in different communities around Ohio and internationally.
Now, what barriers impact housing for persons living in poverty?
Well, it depends a lot on, there's a lot of diversity within those who live in poverty. So sometimes it depends on the individual circumstances, what history they have, what skills, what assets they have. But oftentimes it's really a lack of resources to afford housing, whether it's income, whether it's managing the small resources, whether it's cash assistance or if it's working income. Also disabilities that impact your ability to have enough resources in order to afford housing. So there are a lot of issues that we can say impact a person's ability to afford housing. And those are often those with disabilities, mental health, lack of education, lack of work history or employment, health issues that may come up to cause a crisis. But overall, it's about having enough affordable or subsidized housing in communities so that all people can afford a place to live.
Now, why is it important to address these barriers, and how do these issues affect our larger community?
I think that, as we've talked about, housing, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You can build a really nice apartment unit, but a human being lives within those four walls. And that human being has relationships in their faith community, with their neighbors, at the school. They have an employment history. There are a lot of folks who may have a re-entry challenges, meaning they have something on a record that absolutely serves as a barrier to having a living wage employment. And I think that's a real issue we need to address. access to good quality health care that's consistent, prevention, all of those issues happen outside of the walls of the apartment, but they are absolutely integral to that person maintaining that space to live and having consistency in their life. So you need to address the context if you're going to impact the life of the person living in the apartment.
I would agree. I think that, you know, I come from a background of working with those who have been homeless, and it's so important that people have a stable place to be and that we allow people from there to be part of the community, to receive services, to have access to the things that make a life more whole. So I would agree that it's both.
And empowering people to believe they have a voice, they have a say, giving them tools to navigate all these systems that are in place. That can be a game changer to empower somebody to engage with those systems and feel successful.
What is the future for IPSC? What can we look forward from you guys in the future?
Oh, I love those kinds of questions because they don't have to be based in fact. I can fantasize. I believe that our center is doing something that is really unique. We've been able to bring folks from very different disciplines who have expertise in research, and research is a scary word, but really it's just asking a question in a way you get a decent answer so you can do something with it. And that's all research is, and you can take that and put those answers in the hands of the people who live in these neighborhoods and who want to do something to improve their environment. That's powerful. So I believe that we can take what we've started at a micro level and really, really grow it.
Very good. Website, telephone number, how can people get in touch with you?
www.poverty.osu.edu. And you can email us and someone will get back to you.
Well, very good. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We look forward to hearing more from you guys and of you guys in the future.
Telling you.
So,
Well, thank you for having us.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, that's our program. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to join us again next week at the same time for Joy in Our Town.